Well, in general, I usually don't tell anyone I'm a photographer. Every time I get asked what I do and I say I'm a photographer, they automatically think I shoot weddings. In advertising, the world of splash photography, it's grown a lot in the last 10 years. You know, there's lots of very good photographers and new people are coming along all the time. And the big risk for me is trying to not become obsolete, continuously innovate and look current. My name is Bill Cahill. I'm a commercial photographer. I specialize in liquids mostly, product photography, anything that moves, any kind of special effects. We were contacted by the agency for Peet, and they wanted to do a set of images that are very dark that convey taste. The images varied slightly from what I normally do. Peet wanted, although a stylized point of view, a simplified point of view. Single lights, softer edges, a starker look to the product. They also wanted 5 motion sequences. I started wanting to be a photographer ever since I was a little kid. I liked working with objects that didn't move, and I could spend my time lighting them and working intricately to make a great photograph. When I started assisting, I really fell in love with how liquids worked and how they looked in photographs and ways to manipulate them. When I entered advertising, I wanted to be kind of at the top of the game, and for that you need to advertise like you're at the top of the game. After a couple of years, I slowly started to get more work. I would do free work for agencies, I would try and make friends with art buyers, I would go on meetings, I would do everything that hopefully I needed to do to work my way into agencies. My first ad job was to shoot sloshing gasoline on an 8x10 camera. At that time, it was very difficult to know what you had. You would shoot Polaroids, and from the Polaroids, you'd see if your effect was looking good, and then from there, you'd go on to shoot film, but it would never look exactly the same way as it did in the Polaroid. Nowadays, it's a lot easier. The strobes that allow you to capture splashes are a lot more accessible. When you're photographing a product, you're telling the story of the brand, and I have to create every aspect of that. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what sets a product apart, and that translates into how you light it. Every single reflection, working on all the details that go into an image, and not taking anything for granted. In photography, especially when you're just starting out, getting 80% of the image is fairly easy, but that last 20% can be extremely difficult to get, and that's a big hurdle in anything creative, I think. We started looking at the material immediately. We put in probably 3 days of prep. We sent a few small tests to the client. The trick is to figuring out how much we're going to need, and so we can put that all in the budget, have absolutely everything they could possibly want here. If we're on shoot day and we're photographing a certain cup and it doesn't look quite good enough, we can switch it out right there. They can pick from another 20 cups to decide what we want to use. We start every shot by seeing how much we can do in camera. From there, that's where we figure out what can't be done in camera. Especially with splashes, we'll find out that a pour needs to be shot separately. So we'll shoot the base image in camera, and then we might shoot a pour separately. If a splash goes along with that, we shoot the splash separately, and then we break it down into as many pieces as we need to make the shot work. We did an image of beans falling. We had a stainless coffee scooper, poured beans into that and had them fall onto a bouncy board that would kind of bounce them back up so we could get lots of action. A latte art shot where we had a latte artist come in, create different art for the top of the latte, and we'd photograph him pouring it and preparing the latte. We photographed what they call black tie, which is an iced coffee in a glass with a creamer. We did a hand model shot of a pair of hands that are holding a cup of coffee. Inside that cup of coffee, we did a single droplet. We had a makeup artist come in and apply a small tattoo on the hand to give it a little bit of an edge. You know, a lot of times the splashes, we get one take and then we have to reset. You know, we're not shooting constantly as it's splashing. Something like the latte art would start pouring and I could start firing away and I can get 4 or 5 pictures by the time he's done with the latte art, and then he has to reset. We have to clean the cup, he has to make a new latte, everything has to restart, we have to reposition each time. After the stills, we moved on to motion, and Pete's wanted 5 sequences of motion. You know, as soon as they said motion, we decide on what kind of camera format we need to shoot it on. We really only needed a couple hundred frames a second for what we were going to shoot. So I turned to Industrial Color, who owns Smashbox Studios in Culver City, and they were able to put together the crew, the studio space, and pretty much everything we needed to do the motion shot. When shooting at even just 200 frames a second, we have to shoot at a shutter speed of around 400th of a second. So because of that, we need a lot of light, and also because we're shooting very dark coffee, cream going into coffee. We used 5 12K lights for this that were extremely hot and bright. We need to get a drop of espresso falling into a cup of espresso, and it's a very macro view directly from camera and into the cup of coffee. A shot of a commercial grade espresso machine pouring into a cup. They have a thing called a naked portafilter, which you can see the espresso coming from it, not like the normal ones that have the little spouts. Because we had 5 12Ks, and because we were lighting something so dark, the lights had to be very close to the product. That caused a lot of issues because it was very, very hot. So hot I would get blisters on my fingers from just holding in a dropper to drop into the coffee. The light was so hot, it could light your hair on fire if you were there too long. We had an espresso machine that had sides of plastic that got melted. It was the hottest set I've ever been on. What I enjoyed most was the change of pace. Shooting stills is awesome, and shooting motion is awesome. When I get to switch between the two, it's even more so because I get to do things that are new and different, and I get to experiment a little bit. It was all very interesting. We learned a lot about coffee. The clients seemed to love everything we did. They were extremely happy. The motion part came out really nice. They put it together quickly and got it out onto the internet within days, I think, of shooting it. The still images the clients loved. Those took a little bit more time and retouching. They have a little bit more of a plan as far as when the still images are going to launch. They're creating billboards and bus shelter images and a whole ad campaign based around the still images. I see stuff I've shot quite a bit. Every once in a while I'll have a billboard in Times Square in New York, and if I'm there I get to see it. Flipping through magazines, that's always fun because every once in a while you come across something you've shot, and it's really fulfilling to be recognized for what you love to do. People really like the images that I produce, which makes me super happy. I mean, for any creative person to get rewarded by someone wanting you to work for them is amazing. This career hasn't always been easy. When I started doing this, I assisted a guy for nearly 5 years full-time. From there, I had to figure out how to make that leap. I just did it. I just quit my job and I took out the ads. I had my portfolio of images. I was lucky enough to be married to a wonderful woman who has a great career herself. I was just starting out, and we would do $15,000 advertising campaigns. It's not a lot of money now, but it all goes on credit card. All the equipment goes on credit cards, and you're just hoping that it comes back to you. You know, if you're playing at a higher level, you're bidding against other people that are just as good as you. At that level, it's not about who's the cheapest, it's about who's the best, and that's who they give the job to. Advertising photography, it's a great career because you get to create things that you think are interesting. The trick is hoping that other people find it interesting also. First year and a half, I had no calls, I had no jobs, nothing happened. Only thing you've got is yourself, and if you believe that you can do it. If you don't believe you can do it, you just just don't do it because it's going to cause you a lot of pain. But if you believe you can do it, then you bet on yourself, and it costs a lot of money and it's a huge risk because all it takes is 1 year of no work, which is super easy to happen, and then you're bankrupt. If you keep working towards it and you're not lazy, then it can hopefully all pan out. I'm doing something I love to do every single day. I think it's the best career choice I could have made. I have a son and a wife, and there's no bigger reward than providing for your family.